to a powerful woman. Her name is Jane Addams, and she is a good friend of Mr. Dewey. So a little bit about Jane. Jane was born in Cedarville, Illinois. Oh, I lost my good font. Anyway, this is it. She was born in Cedarville, Illinois in 1860. She was one of 8 children. 4 of them ended up passing away before she was 16, so she was actually one of 4 in the end. She was the daughter of a wealthy family, though. Her father was the president of a bank, and he was also a great entrepreneur. So he owned farmland, he was very agricultural, and I believe he owned cotton as well. And her father was the founder of the Republican Party and a good friend of Abraham Lincoln. All about Jane. She was an avid reader. She really liked Dickens as well as Tolstoy. She was very influenced by those 2 authors. Dickens in particular influenced her desire to serve the poor. So early into her life, she had a desire to become a doctor. But unfortunately, due to her health, she was struck with some sort of illness pretty early on, and it affected her spine, and it went on to affect her education. She actually went to school. She initially went to seminary, but she went on and graduated into med school and didn't make it very far because of her health. And this was really depressing to her, and so she had to figure out different ways to be able to serve the poor. So, when that didn't work out, she founded what is called the Hull House in 1889. She was only 29 years old, which I find very encouraging. The Hull House, what is that? The Hull House was a settlement house for immigrants. She first heard about the idea from a publication. The idea of a settlement house was very new. The first one was built in London. And so she went to see this settlement house to discover sort of what it was that they were doing in London. And the idea of the settlement house was that it was run by middle-class females, like herself. She actually co-founded it with a good friend. And these females would take in immigrants, and then they would offer all sorts of classes, from art to music to job finding to adult classes at night, which back in this period was a radical idea, because to take in the poor and to educate them was something that was costly. Luckily, the Hull House was built in a mansion, and because of her father passing away, each of the 4 children were given a large endowment of money, so she used her savings to be able to buy this mansion and start this Hull House. So this is a picture of the Hull House. I believe these girls are making pots, so it looks like a clay class. And so a lot of the immigrants that were in the Hull House were from Southern and Eastern European countries that had come to America for opportunity and had little to nothing. A lot of children, a lot of widows. This is another picture. These kids are doing art class. You can see them drawing and painting on the floor. They have some easels. So she was very, very much about the creative arts. A lot of her influence were from the men before her, about tactile learning and the I guess, tag that you would call this educational movement of hers was called socialist education, because the idea was that education should be available for everyone. It shouldn't be something that's exclusively for those who can afford it. It should be available for the poor. It should be available for the immigrant. And it should also be available for men and women. And so she was very much about women being able to have the opportunity to embrace any sort of opportunity they want, whether it's becoming a doctor or going into business. A lot of her reading influenced kind of the social norm of her feeling that her role was to become a wife or to become a mother. In fact, she rejected these plainly, and she never did get married or have children herself. And then this is a sports team of women. So this kind of shows you the influence that the woman power had over this particular Hull House. The house was itself run by women, and so it was a very estrogen-filled environment. And yeah, she had the radical idea that education should be integrated with the surrounding community. So looking at the school, she saw it as an opportunity for the school to be able to not only teach the children academics, but to be able to teach them about their social surroundings. And so she and the women that taught at the Hull House not only taught these immigrants, but they also learned from the immigrants and from the cultures that were passing through the house. And that influenced her to want to bring that sort of mindset into the school, to build a multicultural education and to be able to use the school as a setting in which you could teach children about their world. She believed that the changing times were an opportunity to embrace this diversity in community and an opportunity especially for women. And she saw that at this time in the world was really changing from a time of rural kind of ideals to technology and to the Industrial Revolution, and so she wanted to bring that into the school. In the end, she served as a member of the Chicago Board of Education. She was the first vice president for the National American Women's Suffrage Association, which makes sense because she was all about women at this point. Women did not have the right to vote. Their husbands voted for them if she didn't have a husband. And she was the first American woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize in, I believe it was 1931. And then she co-founded, oh no, sorry, it was I think she died in 1931. No, she died in 1935. Okay, she did win it in 1931. And she co-founded the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. And she lived a life well lived. So that is it.